And that's what a major focus of our effort is. Let's do the planning. Let's do the education. Let's create tools for rabbis, for educators, for communities, so they have a better feeling of what does it really mean to make aliyah. When you work for an IBM or AT&T, yeah, you have a great job and you're getting a great salary, but there's something missing. Is that purpose of what you're doing. And to me, that is worth everything.
I am here with a very, very special guest. His name is Paul Bloom. Paul is here from Israel, okay, and he's also a columnist of ours. Paul, welcome to the Jewish Link.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure being here.
Paul, you just came out with a book called Coming Home, okay, which is, from what I understand, as its foundation. I just got my first copy, but I have actually read most of this book because Paul is a weekly columnist for at least the 2.5 years plus, 2 years plus, and the column has been 101 Reasons to Make Aliyah. I think we may have changed it slightly. Paul, welcome to Artzot Habrit. Welcome to the U.S. I know you made Aliyah from Highland Park, Edison, so this is not unfamiliar territory. So we're happy to have you on Mazel Tov
thank you very much.
on the book. Whenever I meet an author, especially a columnist, I always like to say, what got you started? Give us your roots, where you're from. I want to hear the Paul Bloom story, and let's go. Let's hear it.
Okay, so where should I start?
Let's start with beginning. Yeah, at the very beginning. Okay, I know you're a Jersey guy. At least I think you're a Jersey.
Well, let's start with Aaron Cohen.
No, not that far.
Well, I'm a Cohen.
Okay.
And my father's a Cohen, obviously, and my mother's a Bas Cohen.
Hold on, and is Bloom is a name affiliated with Kohanim?
In the way it is, when we just had in the previous several pashas ago, where Aaron's mata was put in, and it bloomed. And it had almonds. So the name Bloom has a root in Aaron Cohen.
Mm-hmm. Okay, good to know.
So right. I'm going to go back forward a couple of thousand years. So I'm kind of a hybrid. I have one grandparent who is from Lithuania that I kind of most relate to. His wife, my grandmother, was from Russia, White Russia. On my mother's side, my grandfather was from Poland, and my grandmother was actually from Brooklyn, but before that, her parents were from Romania. My parents grew up in Brownsville. My father was in Brownsville, and my mother grew up
the Mecca of Jewish life.
The Mecca of Jewish life, right? In East New York.
Got it.
And I lived in Brooklyn for my first 20 years. I went to public school initially, had a great Talmud Torah education. Then I decided that I wanted to go to yeshiva. So I went
on your own?
On my own. And my parents were great. They said, okay, you make the decision. No, you can go to a public high school or you can go to yeshiva. So I went to a school first at Israel Academy, which was more like a transition school. Mm-hmm. And then I went to Yeshiva University High School for boys.
In Brooklyn, probably.
In Brooklyn.
Okay.
Yes.
And you were one of the last classes, I think.
I was one of the last classes on Church Avenue. Mm-hmm. We moved to Avenue M. And I was one of the first graduating classes in Avenue M. And at BTA, I had Rabbi Bomzer, who turned out to be my father-in-law.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Hold on. So Rabbi Bomzer, is this Rabbi Bomzer in Albany?
That's my brother-in-law. So this is Rabbi Bomzer, who is the rabbi of the Young Israel Ocean Parkway.
Got it. Okay. All right. So that's so your high school Rebbe ultimately became your father-in-law. So he must have seen something in you. He must have liked.
I hope so.
Okay. Where'd you go after?
So
BT?
After that, I got married to my wonderful wife Etty.
No yeshiva in Israel, right? It was before that day.
Yeah. So it was very unusual for people to go to yeshiva in Israel at that point in time.
You were Vietnam era. You missed the Vietnam era.
Yes, that was the one lottery that I won. I was number 364.
Wow. So you were the low number. Perfect.
Correct.
Right? Mm-hmm.
Correct. And so I went to Brooklyn Polytech as an engineer. I spent 4 years there and got a degree in electrical engineering. To show you how old I am, when I was a freshman there, they had computers, but they had punch cards.
Wow.
And if you were a senior, you could use the machine. If you didn't, they give you a stylus, and you used to pluck out the holes of the punch cards.
Wow.
So
you're dating yourself.
I'm dating myself a little bit. Okay. And so after I graduated Brooklyn Poly, I was part of Edikop Nu. I was the only person, there were two people in my class who were in kippot. And in fact, that's how I actually met my wife. She had a friend who said, I have a friend who's wearing a kippah in Brooklyn Poly. Are you interested in going out with him? And she said, sure, why not? And I guess the rest was history after that.
Oh, beautiful. That's great. And so you never went to, so you went to BTA. So BTA was really your 4 years of like yeshiva high school. That's your only high level, like Torah academia, so to speak.
But even at Brooklyn Poly, I had a learning program. And even once I got married, I was always involved in learning. So learning has been a lifetime occupation for me. And it continues to this day. Actually,
it's funny because I actually thought, and correct me if I'm wrong, I actually thought you were a Mosmach from somewhere. So
a lot of my friends went to YU, and I spent a lot of time with YU. And I always considered myself a student of the Rav, even though I never sat in any of his classes.
Got it. Okay, so let's fast forward. So I know you ended up somehow in New Jersey.
So after Brooklyn Poly, I got a National Science Foundation grant for my master's, my PhD at University of Michigan, which is a wonderful school, also in engineering. It was very cold. I don't like cold. And it was the 1 year where they had all year was the daylight savings time, and I had an 8 o'clock class. And it was pitch black when I used to go to class. I didn't like that. So I said, you know what? I'm going to apply for a job. And I got a job with Bell Laboratories down in Homedale, New Jersey. And I spent my first 10 years of working down in Homedale.
You work in what people today know as Bell Works.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a very impressive facility. It's beautiful.
It's a beautiful building.
Yeah, it's gotten even. I don't know if you've been there recently. It's gotten even prettier. They put a basketball court in kosher restaurants.
Oh wow! They did not have a kosher restaurant.
No, I'm sure they did.
I just remember the days, especially on Fridays, where I used to go down at about 12 o'clock, take my jacket, and kind of sneak out at 2, and go home, which was not unusual from people working in a corporate environment.
Yeah, and there were other Orthodox guys there.
Yeah. And Rabbi Kamenetsky was my Rav for my first 25 years, and Rabbi Kaufman was my Rav for my next 25 years in Highland Park, Edison. And both of them, I think, were very unusual from the perspective that they openly talked about aliyah and the beauty of Eretz Yisrael and the mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael, which is kind of unusual for many American rabbis. I think there's like an 80-20 rule. 20% of them feel very comfortable talking about it. A large part just do not.
I feel like that's correct. I feel like many rabbis, you will just not hear that much about it. I actually come from a shul where we did hear a lot about it. For Rabbi Rothwack's shul in Beth Aaron, he's leaving in a few weeks to make aliyah. I think you're correct about that. I don't know if that's even changed, even post October 7th. I'm not sure how strongly that's changed.
I don't think it has. And one of the things that I'm actually working on and using this book and the program, the Israeli Inspiration Initiative, which we'll talk about in a few moments, is to get them feel more comfortable talking about aliyah, because it is important. Doesn't mean you have to make aliyah tomorrow, but you have to start the planning process. And if aliyah is on your agenda 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, there's things that you can do now to make that landing softer when you actually make that final choice.
And you were telling me before we got on about the kind of the genesis, the beginning. You said it was a story between you and Irv Cantor. So.
Yes. Okay. So we were walking home from shul one day, and we were talking to each other and say, what do we want to do when we grow up? And we were about 45, 50 years old at the time.
Yeah.
And we both agreed that we don't like the cold, so we don't probably want to stay in New Jersey, once we retire. So it was between Florida and Eretz Yisrael.
Yeah.
And it took us about 30 seconds to say, I think where we want to go is Eretz Yisrael. And we said, I bet there are a lot of other people in our community who would be interested in that. And we both agreed and said, let's see if we can bring some people together just to talk about, aliyah. It's really about buying real estate.
Was the goal maybe that your group of friends would go to Israel together, buy together?
Well, that was the original view. And I'll tell you what happened, because it's an interesting story, even with that. So I went to the Lincoln Square Synagogue, and they happened to have a real estate fair there. Yeah. And there were a whole bunch of projects and builders and real estate agents and bankers and brokers and money changers. So it was a wonderful place to go. And I was talking to people. I said, are you interested to come to this small little hick town in New Jersey called Highland Park? And everyone said yes. Said, okay, we're going to set up a group of people to come and listen to your pitch. So we expected 25, 30 people to show up. We advertised across all the shuls in Highland Park, Edison. I spent most of the time getting chairs. 150 people showed up. We were shocked. So I said, okay.
What year is this?
So this must be 2002.
Got it.
So we said, okay, everyone here has shown some type of interest in looking at real estate and investing in Eretz Yisrael. Maybe we should want to have an ongoing dialogue to kind of talk about the pros and cons of actually buying real estate in Eretz Yisrael. And we said, well, we set up this group. And part of this group, we would meet on a semi-frequent basis every 4 weeks, every 6 weeks. We bring in another speaker. We bring in another real estate agent, talk about a project. And we got to the point of saying, I think we're ready to make a decision. And the initial view was we're going to buy as a group together. And we found a beautiful new project. It was actually in the French Hill.
And so it was in Jerusalem. Did you have like a debate? Jerusalem, Beit Shemesh, Modi'in?
Yeah. So again, out of the 150 people, I would say probably 60-70% said they wanted to be in Yerushalayim. Now the others were talking about Beit Shemesh, we're talking about Ra'anana, some were talking about Beersheba. So there were different, obviously, interests, and I think that's one of the important things. Everyone is an individual. Everyone has a different view of where they want to live. They also have a different view of what aliyah means to them and what's important to them, which is kind of key and one of the things that I kind of bring out in the book itself. So we got to the point, we found this really wonderful project, and about, I think it was 13 or 15 of us said, okay, we're gonna buy an apartment in French Hill. We put money down, and we said, okay, we're living in this wonderful bubble in Highland Park, Edison, where we have our yeshivas and our mikvahs and our restaurants and everything that we needed. Let's make sure that they have all that stuff in French Hill. So I said, you know what? I'm going to be one of the Meraglim. I'm going to go to French Hill, and I'm going to check the place out. So in one of my trips, I went to French Hill, and it's a very nice neighborhood. There's the university is there, Hebrew University is there, the hospital is there.
It's a mixed neighborhood also, I think.
There's mixed in many different ways.
Correct.
So there's a very large Arab population and a very large secular population.
Yep.
And the people from Ramat Eshkol didn't start moving over yet.
Yep.
So I came back and I said, and there was one kosher butcher and there was one shul. I said, okay, we're living in this beautiful bubble, and now we're going to go to Eretz Yisrael, but we're not going to find the types of services that we have where we are living right now. Yeah. So we went back to the builder and said, we kind of reviewed the environment there, and we said, we're not sure it's really good for us. And believe it or not, he actually gave all the money back.
Wow.
Which was really, really very nice. We didn't expect that. And we kind of each went on our own. So I found actually 4 apartments in Shari Chesed. And I got 4 of my friends to say, yeah, I want to go in with you. So we got these 4 apartments. One person then dropped out. So we had 3. So the 3 apartments on the top level, myself, Alan Loxbarger, actually found it through an agent, and David Katzenstein, have bought the 3 apartments. Underneath, I'm sure you've heard of Rabbi Feiner. So Rabbi Feiner lives downstairs in one of the apartments. Rabbi Feiner's parents live in the other corner, and in the middle there's the former state senator of Maine and his family lived in the middle.
State Senator of Maine, Silverman?
Right, exactly.
Oh my God, yeah. I didn't realize that. Wow, okay, I actually know him, so it's funny. Okay. Small world.
It's a very small world. I think it's one of the things that we learned in Eretz. We're one big family. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows everyone else. It's kind of amazing to me. Yeah,
agreed. Agreed. I see it actually a lot through the paper. See the links, so to speak, the connections between all the. We're really not more than a degree or 2 away from everyone. That's exactly. What I've learned.
Exactly.
So that's and it just keeps on coming up. And I'm glad you mentioned it.
Right.
So
and that's why the Jewish Links is a perfect name, because everyone is connected together.
Yeah, I've actually spoken about the fact that I don't love our name, the Jewish Link. I actually think the Jewish Link sounds like a Kiruv organization, but the truth is I've come to peace with it, and I kind of gotten used to it, and I'm okay with it. And it really has to do with what you're putting out for people to read on Shabbos. So right. It's really the product. So I'm good with the name now, but I didn't like it for the first 2-3 years.
Okay.
So
it grew on you.
Yeah, for sure.
But none of us wanted to make aliyah. Very few people that bought homes at that point in time immediately made aliyah. They were all finishing their career or waiting for their kids to get out and be on their own. And slowly but surely, out of the 150, I would say about 70, 80 actually bought real estate. And I would say between maybe a half to 2/3 have made aliyah, and I would say another large percentage are planning to make aliyah sometime in the near future. So I view that as a tremendous success. And I think the reason that we had a success is because people were talking to each other. They were discussing it. They were networking together and really understanding what are the pros and cons. How do we get around some of the potential barriers that may exist in buying a house and even in the eventual aliyah? And that kind of was one of the reasons that I kind of pulled together this organization called the Israeli Inspiration Initiative, because I wanted to create the same environment for other communities so people can talk about it. They can get a feeling of, okay, I have this problem in this area. Does anyone have a good idea of how I can get around this problem? And what I'm finding is, people are opening up and they're sharing their stories and they're sharing what they consider barriers to making aliyah, and they're finding solutions to get around those barriers. So it's very satisfying to see people talking together in a group and actually eventually making a decision to make aliyah.
And by the way, the group thing is I agree with you. People talking to each other. If you're just solo, you don't feel a sense of, I guess there is a pressure to it, a social pressure. In other words, accountability. I'm not sure, but you're 100% right. If there's a group, the group has its own dynamic. It pushes people to do things that they might not have done. By the way, you ultimately made aliyah. You made aliyah.
I made aliyah in 2021. And what really motivated me was, it was during COVID. And the Israeli government said, I had 2 kids and a whole bunch of grandkids in Eretz Israel. They said, if you're not a citizen of Eretz Israel, you can't come into the country.
Oh, wow. I forgot about that. Right. That's right.
And I said, no one's keeping me out of Eretz Israel. I'll become a citizen.
So you're saying COVID really was the push?
It pushed me over the edge. I was always planning to make aliyah, but, we always have excuses why you shouldn't make aliyah. But that kind of took away all my excuses.
Interesting. Wow. And that's it. And do the kids live in Yerushalayim?
So I have 2 kids in Yerushalayim. My son Yisrael is a Rabbi in Mivaseret. He lives in Givat Zev. Mm-hmm. My daughter, and he has 8 kids, 6 girls initially, and he's a Kohen. So he went to Rav Chaim and said, I have 6 girls. I'm a Kohen. When am I going to have a boy? So your next 6 will be boys. Don't worry. His next 2 were boys. I'm not sure what's down the road.
Got it. Okay.
My daughter lives in Ramat Beit Shemesh. She's an occupational therapist, and she has 5 children.
Beautiful. Okay. But so you still have reasons to keep visiting back in the U.S.
Yeah, so I have 2 children here. My daughter Rachel lives in Highland Park, Edison, which is really very convenient. Mm-hmm. And my daughter Tova lives in West Hempstead in a beautiful community, very similar to Highland Park. Unfortunately, it's very easy getting to Eretz Israel than it is getting to Long Island.
Yes, the traffic can be pretty bad. I agree. Okay, so then I think when I first met you a few years ago, you were really you weren't called the Israel Inspiration Initiative though, but you were actively working with families or trying to help people. So yes. That's where you kind of before you started writing, you came back onto my radar screen.
Right,
so
right.
You were doing events and actively working with families. I think.
Yeah. So I became known in IBM as a kind of even though Israel has a laboratory. IBM has a laboratory in Israel. I became kind of the American Israel guy.
Wow, I didn't know that.
And when I come to the story about my retirement, it actually turns into something very valuable to me that I never realized would occur. And I was invited by the New York Consulate to speak at the Mobile World Congress at the Israeli Pavilion, thanking all the Israeli companies and helping them connect with American and either investors and or the American companies for partnerships. So that's where I kind of started getting into the whole Israeli startup world.
Yeah, but you're actually saying something very cool. Like give us a little bit of your business background. Like you were saying how you were involved in some of the technology that drove the 800 number,
yes.
Toll-free number.
Yes. So I started working in Bell Laboratories as soon as I got out of the University of Michigan. And I was in what they call network planning and switching systems, and I was involved in creating new networks and new services. And one of the new services that I was involved in was 800 service and automated operator services. And this used something called the intelligent network. So it's not just switching, it actually goes to a database. It's kind of the early stages of the internet. It went to a database, got information, brought it back, and then told the switching system what to do. These services made the telephone companies hundreds of billions of dollars. So that was kind of like my first introduction of my job. I eventually became a manager at Bell Communications Research. and I became the kind of the mother of the Advanced Intelligent Network, which made the telephone companies not only AT&T, but the Baby Bells and foreign countries hundreds of billions of dollars and not trillions of dollars. Now, I didn't see any of that. I got a pat on the back, and I was doing something, I guess, for the world of communications, but I wanted something more. And that's
more than a pat on the back.
More than a pat on the back. But I was very successful. And then I was offered a job at IBM to kind of lead up part of their telecommunications sector, and I accepted that. And I eventually became the CTO of IBM Research for the communications sector, which includes media and entertainment, telecommunications, and the utilities. And it was during that job that I had the opportunity to do a lot of traveling around the world. And this is where NACE occurred. Every time I went to either Europe or the Far East or to Australia, I always found a cheaper flight that happened to stop in Eretz Yisrael. It was simply amazing to me.
By this time already, you owned an apartment in Israel as well, or
so this was when I first started IBM, I didn't own the apartment. After I started working, I did buy the apartment. But I already had kids going to school there during their gap years, so I used it as an opportunity to visit them. And then obviously when I bought the apartment, I used that opportunity to spend even more time in Eretz Yisrael.
But you're saying your trips to Eretz Yisrael were actually business also. IBM had a lab there as well.
Yes, IBM had a very large research laboratory, basically in Haifa. That was their main location. So I would base myself in Yerushalayim, and I would trek up to Haifa, once or twice a week, while I was in Eretz Yisrael. So it was a wonderful change of jobs and a wonderful experience of really living in Eretz Yisrael, but not really living in Eretz Yisrael.
Right. And IBM, by the way, they were doing like basic research on a lot of things, right?
Yes,
I mean, not always. It wasn't always applied. It was applied, but it was kind of like fundamental research.
Correct. And a lot of the stuff that I did was not the fundamental research, but it was more the applied research. So there were two things that in IBM that I stood out at, kind of got me in trouble in some cases. One was in the area of mobility. So in 2006, I was put on a group of people to look at applications of new technology. And this was the BlackBerry was kind of the kind of the cell phone.
Smartphone the iPhone didn't come out till 2009, 2012. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Correct. Mm-hmm. So as being a researcher, I kind of looked into the future, and I said, this little device, this BlackBerry, is going to grow, and there's going to be a computer you can hold in your hand. And we think about mainframes, which was kind of one of IBM's main businesses, but this little phone here is going to have the power of a mainframe. And everyone thought I was crazy.
By the way, I remember IBM was considered. They never really left there. They stuck with their mainframe a lot later than they should have, probably.
Exactly.
Correct?
And that's why I got into some trouble at IBM, because I was pushing very hard. You need to change your focus. Technology is changing the world. You need to change with it. And I created a whole set of applications for each industry, because we were very, very, not so much in the personal business, but more in the business. So I created applications for almost every sector of the business of how this new device that we don't know anything about before the iPhone is going to change every single business. And IBM owned businesses because of their large computers. So I said, now is the time to change our direction. We can't stay with the old mainframes because we're going to be left in the dust. And unfortunately, either I didn't do a good enough job of convincing them, or they were so stuck in their old business that they couldn't move away. And we see that so often. Kodak is another example where technology kind of changed the whole industry, and they got left behind.
Yeah.
And IBM, unfortunately, was no longer a leader when it came to the whole smartphone business.
Yep.
They're trying to get back, but you don't think of IBM. You think of Google. You think of Apple. Yeah. You think of Samsung. Even Microsoft was able to kind of transform themselves to be more applicable to the new world.
No, I agree. And you barely hear IBM. I don't even know. I mean, I know IBM's out there still, but I don't know. I don't even know what they're preeminent in anymore.
Yeah.
So
no, it's unfortunate because they had a lot of good systems, a lot of good products, and a lot of very smart people. especially in the research organization.
Okay, got it. Let's go back to Israel. So now you're spending more time in Israel, and when did you get the chush and cheshek to start writing? When did you become, so to speak, columnist mode, writer mode, and also really pro aliyah mode as well?
So once I retired, let me tell you the story of my retirement. I was sitting in my office at IBM.
It wasn't COVID. COVID didn't make you retire, right?
No, it wasn't COVID.
COVID. Good.
And my boss came over to me and said, I have an opportunity for you. And I know anytime someone comes up and have an opportunity for you, you need to watch out. He said, IBM's reorganizing and you have a large organization here, and so we're going to have to reorganize you. I said, okay. So where do you think I'm going to go? Well, we have this opportunity in Brazil. We have 3 opportunities for you. We have an opportunity in Brazil, an opportunity in India, and an opportunity in China. And I said, okay, I'm not going to go to India, China, or Brazil. I was 63 years old. And I said, okay, well, let's say I don't want to take these opportunities. I said, well, we'll give you a nice package. So I said, okay, you know what? Spoke to my wife. I'll take the package. So I took the package. 2 days later, I get a phone call. And who's the phone call from? The Israeli consulate in New York. They said, I heard you're retiring. And I said, how'd you hear that I was retiring? I didn't really tell anybody.
Yeah.
We heard that you're retiring, but we have an opportunity for you. I said, maybe this is a good opportunity. I said, yeah, we're looking for someone to help us with the Mobile World Congress, which was a major wireless conference in Barcelona for the past 20, 30 years. And we'd like you to work with the Israeli startups and make contacts with American companies and American investors for these Israeli companies. Wow. And I said, that sounds like a wonderful thing to do. So I immediately took that opportunity, and I was there for 3 years doing that.
And you were still based in Highland Park?
I was based in Highland Park.
Okay.
And I met many, many, many Israeli startups, made lots of contacts. Once I decided that now maybe I should go now on my own and start dealing directly with the Israeli startups and help them, which is what I did.
You helped them raise money? You helped them with their technology?
Helped them to raise money. I had a friend who was in a law firm who had a set of family offices. And for a couple of years, we brought the family offices to Israel and the Israeli companies to the family offices to see if anyone's interested in making investments in those particular startups. And a lot of people did make investments. Eventually the law firm started to kind of move away from that. And I said, okay, maybe it's now time to think about making aliyah. My kids were married, and half of them were in Israel, half of them were here in the United States. So I said, okay, now I have my apartment already. I love my neighborhood in Eretz Yisrael, Shari Chesed. I was going to Rabbi Wein Shul. I became a Talmid of Rabbi Wein, who was unbelievable.
Just for the record, you're in Shari Chesed, but you're on the Rechavia border. So right. I look at you as Shari Chesed Rechavia.
Yeah,
so,
that is exactly.
Okay.
And in fact, we recently had the OU had like a community fair, and I represented Rechavia Shari Chesed at the community fair, which was a lot of fun, by the way. And most of the people in Rabbi Weinzal's shul were either American or English. And they all had families on both sides of the ocean. I guess the ocean is not between England and Israel, but
correct.
I guess you could go around the ocean. And discussions with all my friends, they also had this issue of everyone loves Eretz Yisrael. I would say virtually every modern Orthodox person has a deep connection to Eretz Yisrael. Their kids either live there or they've learned there. They support it financially. They visit there. And there's a real love. But there's very few conversations are really about making aliyah. And we kind of were asking ourselves, well, why is that? Why are people having an issue of taking that step, making that transition from where they are now in Chutz La'aretz to Eretz Yisrael? So he said, let's see if we can kind of create an environment that will encourage people to talk about this. So we brought together a set of 6 people. Rabbi Przansky was one of them. Rabbi Billet was another from the 5 towns.
Both who made aliyah, right?
Both who made aliyah. Dr. Menachem Marcus, who was originally in Teaneck, now is in Shari Chesed. Ronnie Wachtel, who is in West Hempstead, now is in Eretz Israel, and Marty Knecht, who was originally in Elizabeth and is also now in Eretz Israel. So we got together and we said, okay, what can we do to kind of create an environment? I said, you know what, I'm going to call up my friend Moshe Kindelera and see if he will allow me to get little space in his newspaper. And every week I'll put, a couple of reasons. I'll find some source in Tanakh, and I'll find some source in Chazal. And maybe that'll build up and people will kind of read the article and get a more comfortable feeling that Eretz Israel is for them.
By the way, I love that story. But that was the only thing that came out of that meeting of you six? But it's a good origin story, though. I love it. Yeah, keep going. So
one of the things that we wanted to do is, can we find communities to move as a group? Because that kind of eliminates some of the issues, some of the barriers that people have if they move as a group. And we started doing that. We went to a couple of communities, and we found that even though people were living in the same community, they had different interests and different needs.
Yep.
And it was difficult to get a kind of a core of people say, okay, I want to move here.
It's amazing, actually. People who are sending their kids to the same schools, live within a few blocks of each other, just have, in theory, have similar aims, but that's not the case. And even they look the same, and if they grew up in similar neighborhoods, they're not. Some people are Yerushalayim or bust. Some people are like, Yerushalayim to visit on Chagim, and I want Netanya, I want Renana. It's just, it's actually. I'm just saying, I understand and appreciate what you're saying. So
after we try to kind of get groups of people to go in the community, we said, oh, maybe that's not the right direction. Let's go to individual communities and talk about aliyah individually. So I went to Rabbi Josh Fass' office at Nefesh B'Nefesh. Now, Rabbi Fass actually grew up in Highland Park, Edison, so I knew him and his family. And in fact, one of the reasons I went to Rabbi Wein's shul, because Josh's father, Simcha Fass, davened there. And so and he was my chazan for decades at Ov Emet. He actually sat right in front of me at Rabbi Wein's shul at Beit Knesset HaNasi. So I talked to him about what we want to do, because I wanted to make sure, Nefesh B'Nefesh is doing such a wonderful job of helping people once those people make the decision to make aliyah. So I told him what I really want to do is get more people to him. So instead of having only 4,000 people a year making aliyah, maybe we should set a goal that 10 years from now we should get 40,000 people a year to make aliyah.
Still their goal, yeah.
And but how do you do that? And I think one way of doing that was to get people to talk about it and feel comfortable. And I think there's also another way, which we haven't started yet, which is kind of about future goals, is getting into the education system. Making sure that the day schools and the yeshivas talk about Eretz Yisrael and talk about the beauty of Eretz Yisrael.
And not just a perspective from Tanakh historical, but actually, and also not. I think a lot of people in our community, they see Eretz Yisrael as a great place to visit, and maybe we have family there.
Right.
But it's, I don't know. Many seem to miss that message.
Right. And I speak to people. Everyone says, even the Rabbi, I love Eretz Yisrael more than anything else, but, and there are 5 or 6 buts that come out. One, there's the but of family. There's the but of jobs. There's the but I don't know Hebrew very well. There's the but of the unknown. Maybe I'll fail. And there's the but of what I do with my children. And so we said, okay, what we're going to try to address are all those buts. What can we do to kind of make people feel comfortable with all the buts of the family? And part of the book actually addresses those 5 areas and what are the strategies that people could employ to kind of get around the barriers. Doesn't mean you get around the barriers within a week. Sometimes it's a 5-year, a 10-year, a 20-year process to get over some of those barriers. But each one of those barriers is doable. But you have to plan, and you have to think about it, and you have to discuss it with your family and your children. One of the things you don't want to do is wake up one day and tell your kids, we're going to Eretz Yisrael next week.
Yeah.
It's very traumatic. It's a change. Anytime you have a change, there's going to be a risk associated with a change. But if you do the right amount of planning, you can minimize that change. And that's what a major focus of our effort is. Let's do the planning. Let's do the education. Let's create tools for rabbis, for educators, for communities, so they have a better feeling of what does it really mean to make aliyah. Because there's a lot of, I'm going to call it fake news concerning Eretz Yisrael. Both from an education perspective, from a bureaucracy perspective, And 10 years ago, there were a lot more issues than there are now. But within the country, they've recognized they had issues, and they are slowly but surely adjusting and fixing those issues. And I think people need to be up to date on what's going on. Let me give you a quick example. In fact, I had a discussion with a Rav in New Jersey very recently, and talked his large shul, and I said, "Do you talk about Eretz Yisrael?" And he said, "I really don't, because most of my families, they have kids between 8 and 18. It's a very difficult transition. And I've seen so many kids that go to Eretz Yisrael and go off the derech." And I said, "No, that was true a decade ago. But now there are schools, elementary schools, high schools, that focus in on the American and the English olim and make them feel more comfortable and transition from an American culture to an Israeli-American culture." In fact, I spoke to one of the educators recently who just opened a high school for Americans in Beit Shemesh, and he told me that a lot of the Israeli schools are now coming to him because we really like the type of education that you're giving to your kids. Maybe we should modify our education process to be more American-like. So I think there's some major changes that are occurring in the education system. And
I'm really happy to hear that, by the way, because I've been waiting for the impact of all those American olim to have on the Israeli system. First, I've never even heard that term used in Israeli American culture, because usually Americans are kind of like subsumed, or or just like we're kind of absorbed. And I feel like how come we're not hearing more about some of these stories, how more olim are, in a sense, are changing the education system. I want to hear more about this stuff. So
okay. In fact, I'll write an article specifically on that particular issue.
Yeah.
But Beit Shemesh is an excellent example where you had a significant amount of Americans have come into that neighborhood, especially Beit Shemesh Aleph, Ramat Beit Shemesh Aleph, and they've changed the whole culture of that part of Beit Shemesh.
Wow. And
I think it's happening in other places as well, where there's a large number of Anglos that are coming in and bringing their culture.
I'm happy to hear it, because I got the sense that should be happening, but I'm happy that you're saying that. Okay, good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I think one of the barriers was jobs. I hear some people, I have a great job here in the United States. I can't get that same job in Israel. And hundreds of thousands of people have found jobs from America in Eretz Yisrael. With COVID, because now remote working is kind of accepted in a lot of places, more and more people are working remotely. Yeah. A good number of people who are close to retirement are saying, maybe it's the time for me to retire and go to Eretz Yisrael. And I could talk a little bit about my schedule in Eretz Yisrael as a retiree.
Yeah, I know you were debating the meaning of a retiree. So you're retired, but you're not retired. So.
Exactly. So I'm retired because no one's giving me money to do work. But now I'm doing what I'm not retired because I'm doing work that I really love to do. Because I'm working with Klal Yisrael. I'm doing chesed in Klal Yisrael, helping people come to Eretz Yisrael, and just a general chesed of being in Eretz Yisrael. Now, we live in miraculous times. And I was there on October 7th. And remember, I was about to duchen. And the rabbi said, "This is the third alarm. No, we need to stop. We need to go out." And going out and watching the missiles go over Yerushalayim. And
right before duchening. Wow.
Right before duchening. Mm-hmm. And over the 3 years, we see miracle after miracle after miracle occurring between the various kind of mini wars that occurred. And to me, that's a sign that now Kodesh Baruch Hu is saying, Eretz Yisrael is here. It's a modern country. It is an economic power. It's a technology power. It's a military power, which no one would have thought of would occurred 30, 40 years ago. And it's a happiness power.
Yes, that I know. Yeah,
it's amazing. In fact, there was something just came out about a month ago that 20 to 30 years old, these are the people who are fighting in the front, who are protecting all of Klal Yisrael, not just people in Eretz Yisrael. And they were number 2 in the world of being the happiest segment of people, which to me is amazing.
Why do you think that is?
Because they have a purpose. Living in Eretz Yisrael gives you a purpose. Working for an Israeli company gives you a purpose. Even if it's a for-profit, there's an element of purpose. Because you're supporting Eretz Yisrael. You're supporting Klal Yisrael. You're supporting Medinat Yisrael. And when you work for an IBM or AT&T, yeah, you have a great job and you're getting a great salary, but there's something missing. Is that purpose of what you're doing? And to me, that is worth everything. So not that I only changed my location, but I changed my life. And it was really a realization that I didn't have when I was thinking about aliyah. And you really, really don't appreciate Eretz Yisrael until you're actually there. So another quick example. Eretz Yisrael is about Yiddishkeit. Shabbos, the buses say Shabbat Shalom. The calendar, the Jewish calendar, is the Israeli calendar. So Chodesh Elul comes, and all of a sudden you get all the foods for Rosh Hashanah that are in the supermarkets. You finish Yom Kippur or Rosh Hashanah, all the foods for Sukkot come out, and the lulav and esrogim and all the Sukkot decorations. After Sukkot, the day after, the Sufganiyot come out.
Thought they waited a week or two.
They didn't even wait a week.
Yeah.
Beautiful Sufganiyot. After Hanukkah, what comes out? Tu B'Shvat. All the fruits come out. Day after Tu B'Shvat, you get all the Purim stuff coming out. After Purim, it's all Pesach. So your whole life is around the Jewish calendar. And to me, that's simply amazing. And the environment, especially for your kids. Your kids pick up things in the environment. And do you want to have an environment in New York City, or do you want to have an environment in Yerushalayim? And that makes a big difference on how your kids grow up. So I see that with my grandkids. It's Yiddishkeit is kind of now built into their DNA, that it's always going to be a part of them no matter where they end up.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Let's talk about you as a writer. So what's been the takeaway? So writing for the last 2 years, first, how long did it take you? I forget, the columns pre-written when you started writing our column? Also, I also want to hear about, has it increased? Do you feel like being in the Jewish Link and now with this book, has it increased your visibility?
No question
good.
about that. People stop me on the street and say, "Are you the guy in the Jewish Link?"
I love it.
And people in town say, "Oh, I have 102 for you." I said, "Okay, I'll put it in my next book."
Okay. By the way, are we going to add reasons? Or we're
going to add reasons.
Okay, good.
Because there are always more reasons.
Yeah.
It's simply amazing. And when I looked at the different reasons, I want to be very positive. A lot of people talk about, I'm going to make aliyah because I'm worried about the anti-Semitism. I'm worried about people getting hurt here. I'm worried about the universities, the Columbias and the Harvards, where there's this. I said, that's not a reason you should make aliyah. You should make aliyah because you're running away from something. You should make aliyah because you're running to something. And what I focused in my book was, these are things you should run towards.
But none of your reasons are negative. I think all your reasons are positive.
Correct.
Was it hard to come up with 101? Did you feel like any of the reasons are kind of a stretch, or they came naturally?
I would say almost all of them came naturally. Mm-hmm. And I already got recently interviewed by Harry Glazer from your staff, and he asked me, what are the top 10? And I said, boy, it's like choosing your children.
But I know you have a top one. I like that one. What was the top? What was the number one reason?
Well, the number one reason, it's because it's home. Not because it's perfect, not because there aren't things that can be improved, but it's home. You don't have to make believe that this is where you belong, because you know where you belong.
I think the way you phrased it, I think that a Jew belongs in Israel. I think that's what that's what I think what you said.
And we've been told that from Avram Avinu to Moshe Rabbeinu to the Nevi'im to the Chazal to the Meforshim, and even to our prayers. If you look at the Amidah, a large part of the Amidah is talking about going back to Eretz Yisrael by having Et Samech David, Ritzei, having the Avodah come back.
Right.
So if we understand what we're praying for and we listen to the words, what we're praying for, it should be a slam dunk that where we want to go is Eretz Yisrael.
Makes sense. I like that. So tell us about your book tour. Tell us I know you're also looking for maybe places to speak, or just tell us what the marketing plan is, so to speak.
So I started in Highland Park, Edison, where I spent 52 years. And
it was easy for you then.
It was very easy for me. We got a wonderful crowd. I decided to, since I lived there, I was giving the book away for free. A tremendous amount of interaction occurred afterwards. And there's a real interest of how can I start the planning process to think about making aliyah. And that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted to start people to think about it, not to make aliyah tomorrow without a plan, but every person has a set of individual needs and individual restrictions. And you can't force someone to make aliyah unless they plan for it. So what I want everyone to do is individually think about what is limiting you from making aliyah, and how can we work together to help you think about ways of taking those shackles off and really making aliyah sometime in the future. Sometime maybe 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20, maybe even never. But at least you had the honest discussion with you and your family of the importance of Eretz Yisrael in your life. And that's what we wanted to provide, is provide educational material, inspirational material, information that will help you take that next step. Because any journey starts with the first step. And you need to take that first step. You have to take that first step intelligently. And we think there's so much material that's available, not only in my book and in other books, at Nefesh B'Nefesh and other organizations, that will help you take steps. Because we want you to take your steps forward, not all at once, but step by step. And eventually you get to the point where I said, I'm ready to make aliyah, and because of my planning, it's going to be a soft landing in Eretz Yisrael. And those stories that I hear about where people have to come back, my guess, almost all those stories because people didn't do the right planning. They didn't do the right research.
The horror stories, you're saying.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And there are horror stories. There's no question about it. However, there are hundreds and thousands of beautiful stories that exist that don't get the publicity that you hear from the horror stories. And that's what we want people to focus in on, those hundreds of thousands of successful aliyot that occurred and are occurring as we speak today.
Okay, Paul. First of all, thank you very much for coming here.
Oh, my pleasure.
I hope you get to speak in other communities besides your old home community.
Yes.
And
so I'm working with my brother to do something down in Long Branch, and potentially in Fair Lawn. I already got something set up in the White Shul with Rabbi Feiner, and I'm looking for other shuls to open up to me and allow me to talk about the beauty of Eretz Yisrael and how to figure out, from an individual perspective, how to get around all those barriers that will allow me to eventually make aliyah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I hope that message strengthens. Looking forward to seeing you in our paper. God willing. I don't know if we're going to have you published for the next 2 decades, but certainly you certainly have me you certainly have us on a long-term agreement. So I guess that means I have to make aliyah. So wait, hold on. If I make aliyah, you can stop writing. Correct?
No, because there are 6 million Jews, 4 million Jews here.
Yeah.
If we only have 4,000 per year, it's going to be a long time. And keep in mind, unfortunately, in Mitzrayim, only 20% made aliyah. In Bavel, less than 20% made aliyah. Now, in Spain, also a small group. We're hoping to be greater than 20%. And we're hoping tools like this will inspire people to think about, hey, maybe I really need to strengthen my connection with the Jewish people in the state of Israel.
Yeah, I agree. Powerful words. Yashikah. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, good stuff.
Thanks for being with us on the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting podcast. If you would like to participate or be in touch with us in any way, please email us at editor@jewishlink.news and follow us and find our podcast wherever you find podcasts.